All right. With that, we're going to get on. I'm going to give our thanks to our ancestors who were taken from the shores of our homes and dotted all around the world. And I give thanks to their tenacity. I give thanks to their strength. I give thanks for them and their will to continue, because I know a lot didn't survive. And if it wasn't for those survival of the ones who did survive, we would not be here. So for those ancestors, I give thanks. Ashe.
Ashe.
I also give thanks to our heroes and our sheroes, who's opened the doors, led the way, made pathways for us to follow, so we're not subservient, so we don't just take what we're given, that we can stand up, we can rise up, and we can fight back also. So my favorite is the Right Honourable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who I give homage to. There's lots of leaders' names that we know, there's lots of leaders' names we don't know, and there's lots of leaders' names who we'll never know, but they all did their part in opening the way, paving the way, giving us a path and giving us a different direction that we can actually take. So for those ancestors, I say thank you and Ashe.
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 I also give thanks to my ancestors, my lineage, your lineage, whose heads and shoulders who we're all standing upon. The good ancestors who's made us the people who we are today, who's put us in a place where we are today. And it's for those ancestors that's been with us all the way, regardless if we realize it or not. Through thick and thin, they've been there. Even when I think our luck has been bad, they have been there. And they're there for us to call on them for help as well. So we can call on them and ask them questions, ask them to give us guidance and help and advice. And they are there waiting for us to do that. I mean, their advice may not come as how we expect it to come. It'll come in all different forms of ways, a written script, somebody passing by and saying something, a billboard, you turn on the television, a line in music. So let our minds be open to the messages that we should receive when we ask for help. Let their messages also be as clear as this water so that we can receive it openly. So for our ancestors whose heads and shoulders we all standing upon, I say thank you and Ashe.
Ashe.
I also give thanks to the Most High, the one that's given us the earth that we stand upon, the air that we breathe, the sunshine that gives us life, and also the water that gives us life, the animals and everything else that makes the world go round. There's a lot of people who's trying to stop that, but it's our duty to keep this world and to try and keep this earth sacred. But everybody's got to do their little bit, no matter how small it is. As long as we do something, then we can actually help. So for the Creator, I say Ashe and thank you.
Ashe. Thank you.
I also give thanks to as I said, the ones of us who sort of like just left. So the new ancestors that's just passed, I give thanks also. I also give strength to those ones who's not too well. And as I say, give thanks and Ashe.
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 Is there anybody else would like to give thanks or recognize anybody or anything?
Just second what you've just said in relation to my family, Jean. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ashe.
Likewise. Thanks.
Okay, with that, without further ado, we shall move on. Oh, Royston, have you got anything to say about what people need to do?
No, we're good. We're an established crew, I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so make sure you got your pens and your papers so that you can write down any questions that come up during the presentation, or you can put your question in the chat so that each presentation can go smoothly, unless the presenter has asked otherwise or stated otherwise. So with that, we're going to move on to our first presentation, which is Arthur Torrington. And Arthur is going to be talking about the War Empire and the Windrush. So Arthur,
okay, I thought I was second, but doesn't mind. I will need to share the screen then.
yes,
I thought that there was somebody else in front of me.
No, I scheduled you for the first presentation.
Yeah, okay, not to
Yes,
worry.
sorry.
The last email was different.
Okay,
I need to share the screen then.
Go
okay.
ahead.
Royston?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well,
We say welcome, Arthur.
Welcome to the Garvey Village, Unlock the Chains and Keep Well, where
yeah,
you wanted the
I
presenters.
need to be made a co-host before I can do it.
No, you
Thank
don't.
you.
You just need to share the screen.
Well,
Go
that's what
to
I'm trying to do now.
go to the green button, share screen.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Excellent. Can I put myself on mute?
Okay, now this talk is called, let's go to the first slide, War, Empire, and Windrush. Now, this is the first time that you will hear this type of talk. You wouldn't have heard this before because it's something I've just done recently, and I haven't done it in the way that you might think.
Okay.
I just want to show you this particular, these two images, because it's just to remind you about the West Indies, right? Not the Caribbean, the West Indies, because Bermuda is not in the West, is not in the Caribbean, but in the 1600s, they were all called West Indies, all right? Bermuda, and so on. It was all to do with the West Indies, Guyana, British Guyana in the 1600s. Then you had British Honduras. It was all to do with the West Indies. So this Caribbean talk is just a recent thing to do with holidays, right? Nobody talks about going to the holidays in the West Indies now, do they? You see? So in that sense, I want to draw this to your attention to show you about distances. Let's say, for example, you got Guyana, where I'm from, and you go to Jamaica, it's about what, 1,500 miles, right? 1,500 miles. And if you go straight on to Bermuda, you're looking at 2,000 miles. So you're looking at an area that that Britain, I should say, or England, well, covered, and their empire stretched from Guyana, that's more so in the 1800s, and then way on to Bermuda. Now, Bermuda is still a colony, all right? It still belongs to Britain. So Britain is still an empire, all right? Don't think that Britain isn't an empire. Even the Bahamas, you know, Britain still owns those places. It still owns Montserrat, right? So Britain is still an empire. We can't get away from it. But the thing about this particular, these two images is that Britain went there, and I want to talk about England, because England are the people who actually went there and actually almost decimated the Caribs, right? In a sense, if the Caribs didn't, you know, agree to their rule or to accept that they were defeated, they could have been wiped out. And people that I know who are from like Dominica and St. Lucia, some of the places, they know about the actual decimation of the Caribs. And that is how Britain actually began its empire, you know, creating wars. And obviously because they had firepower, they had cannons, they have gone, you know, it was really too much for the local people. And bearing in mind that this word Carib is a generic word, all right? Like how you have British, and you can bring in the Scot, you can bring in Irish, Northern Irish, you can bring in Wales. One word British, but Carib is a similar word because you have all kinds of different people, ethnic groups among the so-called Caribs. So bear in mind that what we're seeing here is the beginning of an empire by Britain, well, the biggest empire that the world has ever known. Here is Britain also trying to copy what the Romans had, right? The Roman Empire was vast, that's true, but then Britain wants to build an empire which is actually surpassing, and which they actually did. They did surpass the Roman Empire in many ways. So you're looking at all over the West Indies, I should say. In Bermuda, I don't know whether you know this, but Britain entered Bermuda and began to rule it in 1612. They landed there around 1609, 1610. And yeah, they controlled Bermuda. Then they began to control St. Kitts. The French and they had a lot of problems and arguments. You know, again, you know, some of my families come from that area. On my mother's side is Catition, and then they went on to places like Barbados and Montserrat and so on. And Britain was occupying, and not only that, you know, they were actually causing, which could well be like a Holocaust, you know, among the actual Caribs. I say Caribs, but I can be corrected in terms of who they possibly are. In Jamaica, they were called the Tainos. And Britain was intended to actually wipe them out. And that is the early days of the Empire War. And later on in the 1600s, 1625, 1655, when they took Jamaica, a lot of Africans from the Leeward Islands went with the British to take Jamaica. A lot of people don't actually know that, right? And what we also know, because the actual Spanish had Jamaica, the Spanish expected the Africans there to speak Spanish. But of course, when Britain took them over the island in 1655, the Africans who were speaking some kind of broken English, so to speak, and communicating, they went to Jamaica and they more or less passed on their knowledge of the English lingo to the Africans that were there, who were possibly talking Spanish, because, you know, Jamaica was owned by the Spanish at the time. So in a sense, the Spanish didn't really put up a fight against the British. They actually ran away, and to some extent, and Britain took that island in 1655 and onwards. And then there were all kinds of fighting against the Maroons and all kinds of different things going on. And that could be said throughout the Caribbean, because Britain had the gunpowder, they had the firepower, so to speak, and they ruled a lot of the Caribbean islands. The Dutch also ruled certain parts of it. The Spanish also had parts of it, and so on. The French also had, well, they had the prize of Haiti, this is the French. And of course, Haiti became a prized possession as such. And what I could mention, and I don't have the slide, is that if you look to the very left, of course, you wouldn't see very much apart from Miami, Florida there, and all the lands right up from there. Britain actually owned those colonies, 13 colonies, 13 American colonies, so to speak. And so Britain was very powerful. You know, you couldn't stop them in the 1600s. Let's move on. But why are they there? Why are they in the Caribbean? They're there because of sugar. And sugar created the empire. That's the point, right? Just like how oil has made, you know, billionaires out of certain people in the world today, in the Middle East, and you name it. Oil was, I mean, sugar was just like that. No different at all from that at all. So Britain made its millions and billions on sugar and on the backs of our ancestors. That's the point. So this image here is showing you a sort of plantation life. All right, don't believe it, but believe certain parts of it, no doubt. There is one of our ancestors cutting cane, one of them drinking, and one of them serving. But the women are working just like the men. They were lifting loads in the same way, the same weight like the men. And then they still have to do childbearing and so on. But listen, look at this one now. What this last picture didn't show you was the children. And this particular one does. You see, children as young as what, 4 years, 5 years, were supposed to work. And that continues from the 1600s way until 1834. All right, friends, our ancestors went through a great deal because Britain wanted to build an empire and to keep the empire going. And in that sense, our ancestors, children, and as you could see, they were keeping this particular empire going, and all along. So if you're looking at 1612 in Bermuda, right on to 1834, that's a long time to have our ancestors enslaved, and that's the point. I push on here because I don't think I've got all night. I have a few minutes left. Britain maintained the empire by these sort of people, or people, African Caribbean people. And these people here on your left, this is a drawing, as you may well know, which looks good. Here they are. They're called the West India Regiment, right? And I'll tell you something about the other side, the other on the right-hand side. Now, the West India Regiment, there were regiments, possibly 12 of them, of hundreds of African men, African Caribbean, we could call them. And these men are the people who maintain the empire, right, from 1795. But I must tell you this, and it is that from the 1600s, African Caribbean men, especially men, were fighting with the British or fighting alongside the British. We've got those documents. We know that's a fact. So Britain was always relying on African Caribbean people to actually maintain the empire, to keep it going, to fight for the empire. And it's exactly what these men here depicted there on your left, very well dressed, looking great in red and so on. This is how it was. And I tell you this as well, these men, that West India Regiment, they were recruited in 1795, and they were actually recruited to go into, well, to go and attempt then to topple Toussaint Louverture. Can you imagine? But they didn't, they couldn't. Toussaint was too great a general, even for our own people, our own West India Regiment to cope with. When it comes to the British sent, and this is in the midst of saying they want to abolish the slave trade in the 1790s, Britain recruited almost 40,000 men. Can you imagine the amount of ships that would be involved? Thousands of ships to go to Haiti, all right, to actually take Haiti, because the French appealed to them. The French plantation owners I'm talking about appealed to them because the French army could not fight against Toussaint and his men and women. That's important to know. The women were also fighters with Toussaint. But eventually they all got kicked out. The fact that Britain believes that black soldiers are better able to fight in tropical climate, and the white people couldn't do it. Mosquitoes used to affect them. Well, they were also wrong with these West India Regiment men, because they all got beaten by Toussaint and had to be kicked out. And so eventually Haiti became independent and a black republic. Now, on your right, I'm moving quickly because obviously I'm not able to talk for that long. Again, Britain is maintaining the empire by having the British West Indies Regiment. They're different now, all right? These guys were formed in 1915. The war started in 1914, the First World War. Britain didn't want them to fight, but Britain was losing. So they, okay, let's recruit these men to fight for us. And these men came in to fight. But the problem here with this particular situation, these guys are on the Western Front, all right? Not these, but some other men were in the Battle of the Somme and so on. But these men could well have been posing with guns, but without any bullets. We've got the documents, no bullets, only posing with guns, because what Britain never wanted to do was to let these men feel that they could have guns to shoot white people. That's a fact. We've got the documents to show. So the point I'm making here is that throughout, I spoke to you just now about 1612. This is nearly 300 years now after, right? 1914, in fact, over that. And Britain still has an empire. Empire kept by these men, because after all, they were like the police, especially the guys on your left. They were the ones, for example, in Jamaica with Paul Bogle. You know, they put down that rebellion, these West India Regiment people. When it comes to in Barbados, 1612, sorry, I'm wrong, 1816. The West India Regiment again put down that rebellion by Bussa. And again, you know, we have in Guyana in 1823, when the Guyanese men and women revolted against the government, against Britain, really. we have these troops, these black troops putting it down, putting down rebellion. So they were the ones who kept Britain as an empire for 300 plus years. We're talking about the guys on the right, 14, 18 war. Britain won that war. I move on to the Second World War now, right? Pushing on. And again, war and, you know, empire, they're going together, right? In the sense that here you have these two men, one from Barbados, one from Trinidad, and on your right, you've got Sam King. Because I remember taking Sam King to an event that Auntie Jean had there in Peckham. I'm sure she is going to talk about it. And Sam King is the man. He is the Windrush man. No Windrush, right? No presence then. Our presence would not be here, right? And he's the man that created this whole Windrush phenomenon and study. And, you know, he was the one who first coined the word Windrush generation, right? Decades ago. He was the one who started the first Windrush commemoration in 1988. And I wasn't there at the time. He brought me into the picture in 1995, or a little before that, because I knew about Windrush through him. So what I'm saying is this: all this talk about Windrush now, this is the man. And Auntie Jean will tell you, you know, when I brought him to give a talk there in Peckham, it was a Windrush talk. How many of you were talking about Windrush then? Sam King was doing it all along, and he is important. He served in the RAF, and he was demobbed. He was demobbed in 1947. He was asked to return to, not asked to, he was commanded to go back to Jamaica, but then he couldn't really live there, he told me, and he didn't want to bring up his children there. You know, he didn't want to raise a family in Jamaica anymore. He wanted to return to Britain because Britain had opportunities, right? And he and many other people took the Windrush ship, and they eventually came to Britain. I'm going to come to that point in a few seconds, but I must tell you about these wonderful, youthful young ladies in the late teens. They came to serve as well, right? They were a part of the empire, keeping the empire going. These are some of the brightest young people, Caribbean people, right? Well, without any doubt, that Britain recruited. They wanted only the best. Not that other people didn't really want to, you know, join and serve. They only took the top class, the top 5 or 1% of people, whether they are to go with the RAF or to be in this particular regiment. They are serving in the army, these young people. But now, you know, these people now would certainly be, well, I would say certainly be in their 90s, I would say. They certainly wouldn't be, I would say, in the 80s anymore. For example, one lady that I know, her name is Nadia Katous. She will be, 96 next week, Monday. So I'm sending her a card, you know, and she's going to be 96 next Wednesday. Sorry, next Monday. Alan Wilmot will be 96 next year. You know, so you're looking at people who are no longer as old as they, you know, as they used to be. Look how lovely they look. But of course now in their 90s, you know, they are absolutely not that way. But at least, you know, they are young at heart. Nadia Katous, like I said, she's a bright lady, still bright. I've got to give her a call. But the main thing is that Britain wanted them to serve, to keep the empire, right? And, well, not only that, they came to help to rebuild Britain. This is how Britain, only an indication of how Britain was, right? For example, you had buses trying to get into houses, and because of the bombs, the German bombs, buses in craters and these big holes in the ground. This is how Britain was during the war and after the war. And then we're looking at the Windrush. So this is where we have the 3 things coming in here. We have war, we have empire, we got Windrush, and here are people who coming in. They're coming in because they cannot find jobs in the Caribbean, or they don't want to stay there, right? By the way, there's a big talk about, well, in years ago that you had 492 Jamaicans coming. That is not the case, right? You have people from all parts of the Caribbean coming over. The majority were Jamaicans. You also had people whose background are Asian, Indo-Caribbeans coming over. You had Chinese Caribbean coming over, and I know at least two Caribbean Chinese who came over in 1948. So it's a multi-ethnic group coming over, but mainly African Caribbean. Now, what you might have heard, because you might have seen television, is that Britain didn't really want this ship to land. All right, they didn't want the ship to land. They didn't want what they called colored immigrants, and that's what they called us. Well, I wasn't on the ship, but that is what they call those who are coming from the Caribbean throughout from 1945. Colored immigrants. They didn't say black immigrants, colored immigrants. And they didn't want them to come because they felt they didn't want them to mix with the people here. They want to keep, whiteness white. They wanted not, the men to trouble the white women and stuff. And it was a stupid approach. Whereas they needed people, to rebuild the country. I showed you a slide just a few seconds ago. That is how Britain was, throughout, Nottingham, Derby, Birmingham, London, Edinburgh, the Germans were bombing left, right, and center. Here are the men again. These are mainly men posing. I'm not so sure whether women are here, but you did have a good number of women here on the ship. Not just 8, as some people had thought. But what we know is that there were at least about, I would say at least 8 nurses who came to, I would presume, get work in hospitals and joining the NHS the following month, July 1948. And here just 2, this is a picture no doubt taken in the 1950s, no doubt, or 60s. Because they went to the Caribbean again to recruit nurses. They recruited the best. They didn't recruit people who didn't know how to nurse, right? The very best. And each time it is to keep the empire going. And later on, you had children coming now because the men came. Some of them were single. Some of them sent for, their girlfriends and wives, and some of them who came who were married, they eventually sent for their children and wives. But this is more so in the 1950s here, right? Not 1948. Because what you're finding now is that this picture here is again to do with young people coming later on in the 50s and 60s. Some of you who are listening may well be among those. But the point is this: these two represent what we now term the present Windrush generation. I just showed you those people on the ship who were the first Windrush generation. Don't get them confused. When you hear about Windrush generation, you're not talking about young people like these or people who have now grown up. For example, these 2 young people may now be in their 50s or 60s. All right, they are the ones caught up in the Windrush scandal. All right, they're the ones, not Sam King's people, not the other guys that you might have seen on the ship. Some of them have passed on. But they are the ones who laid the foundation for you and me. That's the point. They built the platform. They were the ones who lobbied Parliament, who lobbied in the 1950s for the first Race Relations Act. It wasn't people like, you're seeing here, these 2 young people, they were young, they couldn't lobby. They might have, encouraged the father and mother or go along on these campaigns. But the main thing here is that the present generation that are called Windrush generation, they are not the ones we're talking about more so who built in the very early days, those craters that you saw, right? It is your grandfather or your great-grand who would have, or your father who would have actually been the people to have, built that platform at the very beginning in the late 40s, 50s, and so on. But the benefits now are with the younger generation who obviously are a part of this Windrush generation, but more so the second or the third in terms of status. And then the Windrush scandal. I mentioned just now that the scandal happened, and all because of Britain wanting to throw out our people who didn't have, they say, documents and passports and nonsense like that, and treating them badly. But eventually, as you know, they had to apologize. The Home Office had to apologize. Theresa May apologizing. Then you have other secretaries. Then you had Priti Patel of late apologizing because they didn't even know their own laws. Just imagine that the 1948 Nationality Act allowed every West Indian, let's say West Indian, to come to this country like citizens. They weren't immigrants. Don't tell your children or grandchildren that you were an immigrant and they are a child of an immigrant. No, they came as settlers. The law allowed them to travel anywhere in the Commonwealth or again, how, you know, as a young person there, as an older person there, with a big suitcase or a grip, as we used to call it, as though we came here just as how white people have gone to Australia and settled, no problem. They've gone to Canada and settled, no problem. They've gone to New Zealand and settled, no problem. Or the Scots come to London and settle, no problem. But why should we have the same problem? And it's because of racism. That is what's happening. Right, and therefore I'm going to stop there because that's my last slide. I could go on for a longer time, but I have other slides I could show. But I'm just wanted to make the point that we are here by right, right? No apology. When they come and tell us, you know, we are this and we are that, don't accept it. The fact that we have a law, or we had a law, I should say, called the Nationality Act of 1948 was abolished because the government wanted it so. Both governments are guilty. The Labour Party is the same, right? They were the ones who started this trouble, I would say, in 1948, not wanting the Windrush ship to land. It was Clement Attlee, all right? Right through, you know, then you had Winston Churchill and all of them coming and along in the 1950s and stuff, just to affect us, put us down. Kelso Cochrane was killed in 1959. Nobody was even arrested for him. Stephen Lawrence had a better experience, well, not his experience and stuff, but his mother really campaigned, you know, for his murderers to be brought to justice. Two of them have been. But the main point is this: we don't have to actually apologize. That's the main thing for being here. So that's the end of my talk, and I'm gonna stop sharing screen, and then maybe I can take a question or two, or we can go on, you know, to the next person.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, the information that you've given us, my computer is playing up, so hopefully I won't drop out. Yes, thank you, Arthur. What surprises me is that they used our people to keep their empire.
That's a fact.
You know, and then
but I didn't tell you this: the fact that Britain took Africa, they used Caribbean soldiers, right?
yes.
The Gambia was taken by West India Regiment.
Right.
When they went to take Kumasi.
Mm.
I have a photograph, right, of even a woman, right, with something on her head, walking right towards Kumasi to take Kumasi.
Wow.
So it's a lot of stuff I can talk about, but I'm just saying to you that our being here in this country is certainly a part of an empire scenario whereby we have a right to be here. That's or right. To be anywhere.
That's right.
In the Commonwealth, I mean, but not until 1972.
That's ridiculous because they used us for all along.
300 to 400 years.
Yes, literally used us in every way they could use us. They've used us, and now it's like, get out. You know.
That's what happened.
Don't want you here.
That's what happened. Anyway, depending on your time, you know, I can take questions later or now. Or
no, you can take some questions now. The floor is open for anybody who'd like to answer any questions. You covered a lot, and yes, so there's a lot to also to talk about Sam King too, because he also became a mayor, isn't he, for
yes, indeed,
Southwark. And yeah, he's got a wealth. Yeah, I mean, you can do a presentation just on Sam King alone.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, without any doubt, him alone. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So what I want to point I wanted to make was that structure of using us in the past as tools to gain capital still exists here in 2020.
Yes.
And we need to wake up and stop ourselves from being used in that way, because the methodology is still remained intact.
Yes.
Yeah. So one little thing, because I came from that little island of Grenada, the Caribs didn't survive.
Yeah, that's right.
You know? And in Soteas, there's a big kind of, it's marked now as a landmark for the Caribs going over into the sea rather than being captured. So they went over as heroes rather than, you know, succumb to that. And the other small point is that our generation, those children that you showed coming off the ship, and us who are, older, there's an entitlement to claim some compensation for distress and hurt and pain and all of those things that happened as a result of that Windrush era. Someone was telling me last week that because we are typically so passive about this, there have only been, can't remember the exact figure, but it's something like only 146 claims have actually been submitted. And
you mean maybe processed?
No. Claim, well, as far as I said, was claims that were submitted to be processed.
To be processed.
Only about 146.
But they might not also know.
So there are so many more of us who are entitled to actually claim. So we should spread the word, and we should be putting in a claim for that compensation. And just to say, I talked at a workshop that I ran about my own experience of that distress in my 4 years from 61 to 65 and coming here in 65. And one of the guys who was being trained says, look, I am part of that panel. And he said, you should be putting in a claim for this, Royston, So we have more entitlement to compensation than we're aware of. So to be able to spread that word that we should be putting in compensation claims.
Okay, I think Paul has got, you're unmuted. You have a question, Paul?
Hi there, Arthur.
Hello.
Nice seeing you again.
Well, hello.
Hi. One of the issues with regards the ship called the Windrush, and there's a school of thought that suggests that the Windrush, the reason why, excuse the pun, why the Windrush was rushed to get to these shores, because of Cuba. Now, as like I said, there's a school of thought. I've heard this argument put forward by many people, because at that time, Castro was recruiting people in Cuba, and one of the people he wanted to recruit was trained military personnel. Now, you had in excess of 200 highly trained people on the island of Jamaica, which was more or less a very short run from Cuba, and they were out of work, hunting for work, and Castro was interested. Consequently, the British and the Americans got together and said, look, hang on a minute, let's get these people off the island. Not to mention the fact that I think the Governor General as well says, hang on, whoa, we want them off the island quick before Castro gets his hands on them. Now, I like I said, this is just something, a rumor I've heard, sort of thing.
Yes, what happened there, Paul, is that after the 1914-18 war, a lot of our people from the Caribbean were pushed back, the same way they were pushed back after the 1945 when the war finished in 1945. And a lot of them went to Cuba then, you see. That's the story. That's when they went to Cuba, because there was no jobs when they went back in 1919, 1918 when the war finished.
No. I'm talking.
But then you see, but Castro only came in the late 1950s. You see, the Windrush was 1948. You see, so Castro wasn't there then. All right. You see, so the point there with Windrush is that it was Clement Attlee who didn't want the ship to land because he thought there was 492 Jamaicans on it.
Well, yeah,
Right.
but let's just say
We've got those documents, you say.
The fact that a ship coming from a British ship going to Jamaica, getting X amount of, well, going to the West Indies, getting X amount of people on the ship and coming to these shores, it means that they have got permission to land, you know, and that would have been sorted out years, if not months beforehand. So the fact that this particular MP didn't want the ship to land is highly questionable.
Yeah, they couldn't stop it really, but they only talk, big talk.
Sorry?
It's only big talk.
Well,
they couldn't stop the ship. They could delay the ship landing, but they couldn't stop it landing.
One thing, it was a foregone conclusion. What surprised me was the rush. You know, the rush that they managed to pack the ship up with these people off the island very, 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 very quick and get them off. But then again, what you said earlier on about the British Empire, I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people would not want to take the Empire Medal or the MBEs or whatever, because of that history that surrounds it. Yeah.
But can I just add something as well, you see, because this thing about empire, Britain is still an empire. I mean, America is an empire, right? So a lot of our people who are elsewhere in the diaspora are either in America and or the UK, or they could be in France, right?
Mm.
They are still living in a part of an empire, right? And we can't get rid of it. But the point we're trying to make is that whatever, especially we are British, we have had a right to be here. We have a right to be here and not to be in any way deemed as immigrants at all. That was the point of my talk. In no way, never accept it.
Thank you.
Thank
Sister
you.
Doctor.
Thank you. I was going to say, Sister Doctor.
Greetings, family. Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
Thank you so much, Elder Torrington, for that presentation. One of the things I really appreciated about it is it is not just a theory, or it's not just a presentation without connecting to the very people who are likely to be in the Zoom meeting or have relatives who are in the caught up in this whole nonsense. So the lived experience and the consequence of history is made very clear in your presentation, so that we have a connection to what happened. When Brother King when Royston was speaking, he mentioned that we can make legitimate claims. And I don't know if the Garvey Village Enterprise or who on this call might take this forward, but I would want to advocate that something is done to assist or offer guidance in how that claim is made. Because individually we may consider that we can make a claim, but we may not know how to make the claim, what language we should use, where we should send that claim, whether there is a limitation, you have to have done it within a certain amount of time, so on and so forth, so that we don't once again become disheartened by moving towards some notion of repair and then being turned away because we didn't organize our claim properly, or so on and so forth. So I would urge us to, now that we've heard, and it's very clear that connection, and we've heard that we can legitimately make a claim, as we should, because damage has been done to us and our ancestors, that we are given some kind of parameters, some kind of language, just a very clear, structured way in which we begin to claim what is legitimately ours.
Yeah, just to add to you there, sister, is that at the moment the government has at least potentially 10,000 people who are are potential claimants. And well, they haven't even been able to settle with even up to 200 yet.
Wow.
And the money's in the well, still in the treasury, is possibly more than £500 million.
Yes, and I would say, Elder, they're waiting for us to die.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
They're waiting for us to die, and so there is a number of things that I think, Auntie Jean, if I may, maybe there can be something about us also creating wills. We need to create wills so that if we should pass, that whatever the claim is that we have made still has some level of legitimacy because it is transferred over. Unfortunately, we do not feel comfortable making wills and last testaments and all sorts of things, but we must have a very clear way in which we make the claim and that it goes to our estate, because they should not be allowed to get away with this. But we will need guidance in this, because in school, they wouldn't have told us how to do it. Those of us who have gone into higher education or whatever would not necessarily have been told how to do it. And the way that we will find out how to do it is through these kinds of gatherings, through our own community empowerment, development, and so on and so forth. So I really urge us to be thinking about the fact that these people who have committed these atrocities are now waiting for us to pass, and some of us have already passed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And can I also add that I had occasion, maybe less than 2 years ago, to look at the government bank account in terms of money that's owed. And there are a phenomenal number of people from the Caribbean who has died and there isn't an next of kin identified. So that money is sitting in the government's bank account. And people, there is a name, but it's been also been identified by country. And it's no surprise that the largest pot of money are Jamaicans. You know, so there's a phenomenal amount of Jamaicans who have passed, whose money, entitlement to their next of kin is sitting in the British Treasury at the moment without anyone coming forward to claim it.
Can I come back very quickly here?
Please.
There are organizations in the UK who are set up to find the relatives, the relatives of people, not necessarily in the so-called Windrush situation, but just generally what they do is they go through different records to find out where there are large sums of money, who is supposed to inherit that. They find the person, but they get a commission off of it. So there are people making money off of the fact that money has been left to people and people don't know. So you understand, people will be seeking to get money and the money belongs to us. There should be no shame attached to us going to get the money that is legitimately ours. We sometimes have an issue with ideas that we may be going with a begging bowl or we are look something. Our ancestors have paid for this. It is part of our inheritance. Let us please go head held high with our voice very clear and claim what has been left to us by our ancestors. There's no point pouring libation, but not getting what it is they have left for us. So let us please do this.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Sis Doctor. Thank you. Anne-Marie, I noticed that you unmuted earlier on. Do you have a question?
Can't hear her.
Anne-Marie, is she unmuted? Is she still muted? Anne-Marie? Okay, has anybody else got any questions?
I just had a quick question, Arthur, about
Hi.
greetings.
Greetings, Pa.
about the Spanish and the British, and you said the Spanish didn't actually put up a fight. Can you say what that was about?
Well, what happened really was that the Spanish didn't have a lot of reinforcements in Jamaica, right? And that Britain also wanted not only Jamaica, but I think they possibly wanted like possibly Haiti or one of the bigger islands, which they couldn't get. They couldn't, they didn't have. So they took troops put together, from my reading, from the Leeward Islands.
Okay.
Really, that went to take Jamaica. Eventually to take Jamaica or any other. See, at that time, Britain was going hunting for land to destroy people, whoever they were. If you don't surrender, you're gone. And that's what happened in Jamaica. So they took Africans as well, African Caribbeans from the Leeward Islands, like St. Kitts and those places around there, Barbados, and well, Barbados is lower down, but certainly Antigua. That's Antigua. And that's why a lot of people say you get mixed up with the accents with Antiguan and Jamaicans, because originally the Leeward Islands, including Antigua and St. Kitts, took English to Jamaica. That's a fact.
So you saying that the major language there was Spanish in Jamaica?
Yeah, the Spanish are speaking Spanish.
We've got a Spanish town.
That's right. That's right. In other words, the Africans were supposed to speak Spanish or any kind of Spanish to communicate. Because the Spanish had Jamaica for a number of years. Okay. You see, so in other words, it was the Africans who went from the Leeward Islands, from the Caribbean, who went and took whatever language, whatever English they knew.
Okay.
Really, and that is how. And of course, islands developed their own language and communications eventually.
You also mentioned Paul Bogle at the time. Was it around this time that Paul Bogle?
But Paul Bogle is an interesting thing, whereby the West India Regiment were used. You see, our own people were used against us. Apart from the Maroons, the Maroons didn't help Paul Bogle and his people, but who stood there to actually make sure that everything goes the British way.
Right.
That's a fact, you see. Right. And throughout that century, from 1795 right on to 1927, you had the West India Regiment in operation. The West India Regiment went and did service, I think, in East Africa, or no, they went either West Africa and East Africa. So Britain was using, our people to conquer our people.
Yeah, that leaves even a more bitter taste in my mouth. That does.
I mean, when I first heard that, I thought to myself, well, what kind of trouble is?
Yeah,
that's a fact, because they were able to say, look, if you're going to shoot this person, I'm going to shoot you.
Yeah. Well, I think that also accounts for maybe the deep-rooted hatred that we have for each other.
Indeed, that's a fact.
And that may have actually prevented us from
because from what I read again, the West Indian Regiment, especially those who were stationed in Jamaica, and then I think it's then Barbados or Trinidad, they're the ones. They felt so much bigger than anybody else, And not only that, they had a link between Jamaica and Sierra Leone, and they would actually exchange regiments. So one time they're in Jamaica, one time they're in Sierra Leone. And that was going on way through the 1800s, eventually. But, the story is grim.
Yeah.
Grim story. But the point we have to make, though, is that those contributions were made, whether voluntary or involuntary. And then we who are here now, we can't be messed around with.
No.
That's the thing. I mean, this £500 million or whatever, is nothing to really compensate for the actual tragedies, of 300 to 400 years.
Yeah.
That's the fact.
Sister Marlene, you have your hand up for a question. Thank you, Arthur.
Okay, Marlene.
Sister Marlene.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Yeah. Yes, have you tried writing a palatable book on the subject for the schools?
Well, I haven't written a book, but we have educational resources like it. For example, we have an exhibition called Making Freedom. Now, Making Freedom is an exhibition of 12 panels, and well, I'm wrong actually. It goes right to 20 panels, and it starts with Toussaint Louverture, and then it goes on to Bossa Rebellion in Barbados, 1816, I think it is, something like that. And then it goes on to Guyana in 1823. Then it goes on to Sam Sharp.
So where is this panel held?
Well, the panels, as you may know, because of COVID, it's in storage. You see, that's unfortunate. But then we also have educational resources on the internet, right? We have that on the internet. And what I will do, I'll give Auntie Jean the details, and then she could send around. So we do have that information really for children, as well as we have the information for Windrush as well. And that's on Windrush. That's on windrushfoundation.com. It's a free download of 70 Windrush pioneers and champions. And it has people like Sam King. It's got people, you know, who made a lot of contributions to our, our people in the very early days. It had Claudia Jones. You know, it's got great, some great people who were there at the beginning, who lobbied. It got David Pitt, Lord Pitt. I mean, it got some real, I would say, pioneers who led the way. So yes, so there is material from our website. But
nobody's actually written something that someone could use, like, as reading material or
the narrative. Well, look, sister, you are so right. Somebody, my friend, his name is Keith Davidson. He told that to me so many years ago when we were doing Making Freedom, and we could bring together the stories from Toussaint Louverture, because for us, he led the way. Toussaint, right?
But even what you've just told us,
1791, he led the way, right?
Yeah, yes. Even what you've told us tonight on recording could be written down as a chapter for whatever in a book.
Absolutely, Marlene, yes. And I mean, after all, I think that Auntie Jean is recording it. It could always be passed around. I mean, the main thing is that these stories are such a small number of things, of incidents that we must tell our children, because they have to keep those stories going.
That's why we need it written, because when people like you are not around, others need to be able to. I know you got it from archives as well, but others need to be able to.
Sister, I can assure you that we're working on it. At the moment, we have an education pack that's being prepared about Sam King, right? And it will take us from Sam King as a boy, right through, to his passing in 2016.
Well, we need things on the war, because that was hidden from us.
You are so right, sister.
Well.
But yeah, there are books as well. We've done something on Cy Grant. There's going to be an event for Cy Grant on the 8th of November. I'll tell Auntie Jean to pass around as well. He is foremost in the Second World War. Cy Grant. He was actually his plane was shot down over Holland. He was taken by the Germans. He spent 2 years in a prison of war camp. Cy Grant. He was rescued there by the Russians and then the Americans, and he came back to this country, and he was an activist until his passing at age 90.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
All right. Thank you.
I just wanted to have a quick question, Arthur.
Okay, then, Pat.
Are you aware of Tony Seeley, who does theatre and education?
I do indeed. I do.
Okay, because last night I was watching his the performance of the Windrush generation. There were, it was online, but groups of people have come together to tell their story, and which was enacted last night with various actors. one of the questions that was asked was, had he considered maybe making the story into a film? So hearing the story from you tonight, my thinking is perhaps there could be some collaboration.
Yes, that has been mentioned to me before as well. Yeah, because we've got the material, you know. I mean, for example, I did in 2007, I interviewed something like 20 Windrush people who hadn't passed away yet, plus another 20 who actually I was able to get information about who had passed away. You see, so we've got information that we could put out there, archival stuff.
Yes.
And then we can always talk to people who are alive today, like this chap in Leeds, you know, he's still alive, he'll be 95 next year. We've got the material, it's only a matter of time. We will do it.
Okay.
Do it. Yeah, Auntie Jane? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Don't make it too late. Don't make you pass away.
I can tell you, we are certainly working on it, you know, for the sake of younger people, you know, we must do it.
We need to know. They need to know, and it needs, as you said, it needs to be documented.
Yes.
And so easy access. So thank you so much, Arthur.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Okay. No doubt we'll be calling you back.
We need to move forward. We need to move forward.
Yeah, of course, brother.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. And we're moving on swiftly to our next presentation.
Before you go, I wanted to
kick in the what is it?
Yes.
I'm so sorry, it's Emma. Yeah.
Please hold that till the end.
Okay.
Please.
I don't know if I'll be here.
At the end, then,
just do it quickly, Emma. Just do it quickly.
No.
Yes.
No.
At the end.
She said that she might not be here. She said she might not be here.
Let us move forward, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Come on.
All right. So
time is gone. Time is gone.
Our next presentation is Paul Phoenix, and Paul is going to be talking about the state of us in the 21st century. So Paul Phoenix.
Let's go.
The screen is now yours, and welcome. Paul?
Yes, right.
Hi.
Well, hi everybody, and once again, thank you very much, Arthur, for a good presentation, interesting. One of the things that even reflects up to now, sometimes we get messages and we are asked to look at people in the past who had to do certain things. And I think it might be a good chance to mention what the West Indian Regiment really were doing and what was the mindset of those people who were part and parcel of the West Indian Regiment, who was wearing the king's uniform and who were taking territory belonging to people of their own kind, you know, for a foreign government. Why was that happening? You know, why were these people who were from Africa, who should have known better, as we pointed out, why were they doing this? Well, the question is, they didn't have much of a choice. The same way as there are a lot of people today, presently, who are either are in the government or in various projects, who do the same thing. So what those guys were doing on behalf of the Crown are what a lot of our people are doing today, again, on behalf of the Crown. So I think a lot of the package that that has been loaded onto them, I think is quite unfair, because really and truly, they didn't know a lot better and they didn't have any choice. A lot of pressure was put on them and they did it. And like I said, the same as what's happening right now at this present moment today. So we see a parallel between them yesteryear and the people today who set us out, who stand as a buffer zone between us and the powers that be, who, when we put up an argument to challenge various people in the education system or whatever have you, firmly position themselves or are put in a position so that they could form that buffer zone, so we don't argue directly with the people who we've got the argument with. So the same thing that those guys did yesteryear, the same thing happening right now. One of my issues, and I did the name of my talk is how we were then. You know, what's happening to us as a people. You know, why are we here? Why are we still the subject of ridicule? Why are we at the bottom of the academic ladder? Why are we at the bottom of the commercial ladder? Why do we find ourselves in a position whereby immigrants can come to these shores, few years, and they're thriving? They've got businesses, they've got schools, they've got everything, and yet still we don't seem to be able to move forward. Okay, there are a few individuals who are making, you know, headways for themselves and doing other things, but it's not a concentrated effort as a core, as a group, as a community. We are not there. And I would like to know why. We've had recently the tragic death of George Floyd in America. Terrible. And it caused, quite rightly, a massive outcry of people. And in fact, it put into focus a group called BLM, Black Lives Matter. But we've also had the tragic murder of Stephen Lawrence. Why didn't we have a similar thing here? Why didn't we have a BLM here? Why didn't we start off that process? Why at that time didn't we start putting down statues? Because it was obvious that the investigating officers lied. A lot of people lied. The guys who attacked this young man and murdered him were out there in the public domain for quite a long time before a few of them were arrested. Now, I find this unbelievable because why I find it hard to fathom is because we are talking about an investigative force, which is arguably the best in the world. And I mean the best. Scotland Yard is the best. Actually, I believe Scotland Yard were the group that helped America set up their CIA. They are that good. As regards investigative technology, I believe Scotland Yard leads in the science of investigation. So why couldn't they find 5 hooligans that was known to them? And why did we not really kick up a row, a fuss about that? Why is it still that we have a situation where a parent who is legally entitled to educate her child or children at home, yet still have to suffer harassment from social services and the police? Now, I can talk about this because I've been there. I have helped to a parent and I've helped her deal with an hostile social services and an aggressive police. It's like this. She decided to teach her children at home. Social services says, we don't think that's a good idea. Why are you doing that? And she said, because the school are not teaching my children the way I think they should be taught. And my children are unhappy in the school. They are bullied, and the school actually turns a blind eye to the bullying. And they said, well, in that case, we are going to come and we are going to have a test to see that those children are effectively following the curriculum. So she says, right, fine, do what you can. So they refused to give her any help. She asked them, can you help me to build a curriculum for my children. They refuse. Now, I won't call the name of the council because they are not here, and I don't do this. I don't call people out if they are not present in a group whereby they can organize or they can answer the questions directly. But there's a borough who, instead of helping this woman, who hadn't challenged them, argued with them, she was not rude to them, they sent the social workers around to her house, and they started finding all kinds of fault. At one point, they reckoned that the neighbors phoned them up to complain about the children crying, and the children, yes, and the children keeping a lot of noise. Now you've got 4 children in your house. It is not a quiet zone, you know what I mean? So the social worker says, we feel that the children are in danger. So on a particular day, when I was there, they sent the police as well. In other words, the social workers came with the police. Now, she refused to let them in because, as far as she was concerned, there was no danger to her children. The police then came and tried to force their way into the door. I said, there is no way you can force your way in. You tell us who called you, why they called you, and the reason why you're here, and you show us a warrant. Okay, after that, we had a conversation. So it was decided that one of the sergeants would come in and have a chat to the children. He did, he had a chat to the children, there was nothing wrong. The social worker came in, saw the books, which I helped the parent put together, and nothing was wrong. But one thing puzzled me. The level of scrutiny that they were aiming at that parent, they never, ever aimed at the schools. Not once did they go into the schools with the police and says, right, we want to see how these children are being taught. This child is making complaints about being bullied. Tell me, show us how you're making all efforts to protect that child. The school has a legal duty to protect your child, because in the law, the school are regarded as locum parentis, which means local parents, and the school has an enormous amount of power while your child or children is in their premises. After that, we had words with the social services. The social services were aggressive, and the way they treated this woman was unbelievable. If I wasn't there, she literally would have broke down. Now, this happened to us. I'm not saying that a lot of other communities do not have issues with education, but for some reason or the other, we seem to be getting the brunt of it. Another incident, a youngster, again, I can't mention the school, and neither the local authority, but this youngster committed suicide, 11 years old. And when he was bullied at school, his parents complained to the school, my child is not happy and my child is being bullied in your school. Nothing was done about it. One morning, in fact, the father went into the room because he thought that the young lad was taking too long to get ready for school, and he found him hanging by his tie. There was, even now it gets to me, and the thing is, I can still see this woman's face and the child's father. He doted that boy, and the mother was, well, eventually the school didn't want to know, literally. As far as they were concerned, it wasn't their fault. So they were doing a kind of a damage limitation exercise. We don't want to be held responsible for this. A child's died. Nowhere. But it was their fault. This child was bullied on a regular basis. He complained to a lot of the teachers. Some of them were Black. And they dismissed him. They dismissed his complaints. So when he came back to the house, he told his mother, his father, his bigger sister, and they all went to the school, and the school wasn't really interested. Now, this is terrible, it's horrible. The reason why I'm saying this is so that we can understand exactly what we're in right now. And it's not a really good place. This is not carnival. This is not boogie. We are in a place right now whereby we are hammered left, right, and center by a system that is still institutionally racist, by a school system that sees in the main young Black children just being funding fodder. I had the terrible task of representing this woman in the coroner's court. She collapsed about 3 times. I saw people, our own people, who stood up and protected the school. They were lying. Once or twice we cut them out lying. And these weren't people from the planet Uranus. These were people from our own communities who happened to be teachers, who decided that their bread and butter lie not with the community, but with these groups of people who were doing this to our children. This was some time ago. Now, I have heard and seen a lot of instances whereby we are talking about doing this with our children, doing that with our children. However, we care to look at the situation, we are not in a very, very good place. Yes, there are some of us who make some money, some of us who've got a lot of businesses going, some of us who are active in the professional arena, some of us who drive big fancy cars, big houses, some of us who made it, so to speak. But in the general, in the main, we haven't. Let me give you an incident. I was walking to the park, Air Park, and I saw 2 guys. Now, from my experience, I would say they were muggers. I saw them, the body language. I saw one guy pass another guy a skipping rope and showing him how to skip. Now, he would have to be an absolute moron not to know how to skip, honest to God, because, I mean, for a time, 6, 7, 8 years old, he would skip. But what he was doing, he was using that skipping rope as a front for being in the park. And what he was waiting for was the vulnerable people walking through the park. And there were 2 of them. There were 2 Asian women with a pram. Now, I came out the park and I walked down the side road with the railings separating myself from the park. And when I remember that when I walked to the park and I looked back at him, he stopped walking because he was walking behind me, and he stopped and he turned around as if he was looking for something else. And that really, really made me suspicious. Now, when I got outside the park, I shouted to him and said, "Excuse me." And she said, "Yes, what? Yes, what?" I said, "Look, I can't shout now, so come a little bit closer. Why? You know, there was a railing separating us. Why? I said, I don't want to shout. Why not? I said, okay. Be very careful in walking through the spark. Why? Why should I? Who are you? No. I said, you know, I said, whoa. This woman is seeing me, and her suspicion is such that she is ignoring what I'm telling her. Now, if you don't think that we as a group of people have got the respect and understanding of some of these so-called immigrant groups, then all you need to do is to just to walk down the market, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We look towards a kind of community marketing whereby we are expected to go into business, do things, and become entrepreneurs and whatever have you. There's a lot of programs organized and set up for us to do that. Do an exercise. Walk down any high street and tell me how many shops you see run by people of African origin. How many businesses are still open by people of African origin? And looking back at those places in the past, didn't you see them full of Black people? So where has all that gone? So where is all this thing about moving forward, what we should have achieved? Where is it? It's not there. Like I said, we're still at the bottom of the economic and commercial. Sorry, I must ask you, Victoria, excuse me for a minute, please. I'm gonna go.
While we wait for Paul to come back. I don't understand. He's just disappeared. But anyway.
I'm going to say, Jean, lack of
African people.
You don't need to understand.
You can show your book now, Emma.
I love African people.
Come on in, Emma. Come on, Emma.
Oh, no need to wonder. I'm here.
Okay.
I haven't done a runner.
All right.
Right. Okay, wait. Right. Walk down any street and ask yourself a question. Where have all, as the song says, where have all the young men gone? Where have all the sisters? Where are the people? Where are our people? Where is our initiative being shown? We have a reputation in this town whereby we are seen merely as a support staff. How many times have you come across this instance whereby this person walked into a shop and was immediately regarded as being part of the hired help? Recently, we had this incident whereby this lawyer was regarded as the perpetrator in a court case. Have you ever come across a situation whereby that has happened to another member of any group? Now the thing is that we don't really see this. When I say we, a lot of us don't really regard these sort of instances as being worthy of notice. But they are, because they tell a story. And the story they tell is how we are still seen by people, even the people that we call this BAME thing. At the moment right now, a certain group who are responsible for Black History Month, the only thing that they can show about people of African origin in this country is a display called the West Indian Front Room. Now, okay, fair enough. You know, the West Indian Front Room was there. It is a sideshow. It is a sideshow. It is not a main issue. It is not the main show. But they have it there put up, and that's the only thing that they can use to show for Black History Month what we have contributed, a front room. No talk about the lawyers, no talk about the doctors, the politicians, many people in the community who made contributions to not just our community, but the host community as well. No talk about them. In fact, there's hardly anything about the Windrush. Nothing, just a front room. Now, people say to me, come on, Paul, man, you're picking at hairs. No, I'm not. Because these things tell you something. They shout to you, they tell you something, they tell you that this is how you are viewed. It doesn't matter what you do. You take off the clothes associated with the role that you work with, and you become the person who everybody thinks that they can push around. And the only protection as such that you have is the garments that you wear that is associated with something, usually with the same type of power that kept you down, ironically, as it stands. But something I noticed about this celebration of Black History Month, the absence of paying tribute to our women. Now, we don't need someone to tell us to respect our sisters. We do it ourselves because we know that without our women folk, we'd be nowhere. And looking at what all women have done for us, for our nation, apart from giving birth to our sons and daughters, all women have stood side by side in the main with us and fought with us all the way through. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You just go out there and have a look at yourself and find out exactly how many women are mentioned as scientists, as people of note during our Black History Month. And it is supposed to be our Black History Month, isn't it? No, it's not. It's run by other people who tell us what they think that we have done. There is no other community in this country who have a festival that is not run by themselves. We gave this country the carnival. It doesn't belong to us anymore. Believe me, I know. The carnival makes an enormous amount of money. In fact, the last meeting I went to was the carnival made in excess, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it was a conservative estimate was over £50 million a year. It makes a lot more than that. And that money is generated not just by the stalls of the people who spend money on the street on the carnival route, but by what we call invisible earnings, the hotels, the pubs, all of those make money during the carnival. In fact, one pub says to me, he said, listen, I only have to work 2 days a year. Because in those 2 days, every single time I am sold out. So I stock up my pub with enough beer to last for about a week, which I actually can get rid of. They contribute nothing to the carnival. And the last meeting I went to, I heard a lot of our people arguing with the council about supporting us. We need this and that amount of money, when in actual fact, we gave more than that to the borough concerned. Again, do your math. We are being shortchanged. Why are we being shortchanged? Because we don't stand up for ourselves. We have lost basic common respect for each other. That doesn't happen anymore. You walk the streets and you look at a brother or sister, and immediately you can guarantee I'm gonna set them face upon you, buddy. They look upon you rough as if they expect to be attacked by you. Back in the days, you look at a brother and sister, you would nod and you'd smile, hi. Them days are gone. It's another world that has passed us by. It has passed. It's like it's something that is hidden in plain sight. The mere fact that we have been structured to distrust and dislike each other. We don't see any other group in this town doing that. Every single community in this town have got their good guys, their bad guys. They don't always see eye to eye on everything. But when it comes to dealing with us, you can bet your bottom dollar they see eye to eye on that. We are unique in the fact that we don't deal with each other. Now, you don't take my word for it. Have a look for yourself. Tomorrow, go around the shops, the market, the streets, wherever, and look at us again. Look at us through the eyes of someone studying our behavior patterns, and you'll see what I'm telling you. A lot of stuff that keeps communities together, a lot of the basic stuff is gone. We don't have it. It's not there. We don't practice it anymore. It's not there. Auntie Jean here I remember she made an appeal to us to assist in trying to get some premises. We spend billions of pounds on cosmetics. We spend millions on buying dead people's hair. Come on, look. We are a multi-billion-pound industry. And we haven't got a single school. We haven't got even a walk-in clinic. Not even a center. Not even the proverbial pot. And we've been here longer, hundreds of years longer than people who just arrived on these shores. And they are employing us. They're selling our own foods to ask. I walked on the shop. I live in Lewisham, and the only time in the market I can see a black face is the brother. I think it's his dad and his mom, and they've got a market, and they sell yams and sweet potatoes and stuff, backyard food. Apart from that, it's all Asian shops. And they've got the cheek to put up a big sign, we sell African foods. When you go in there, you don't see one single person of African ancestry being employed, but you see the shops full of African people. By African, I mean us black people, every one of us, right? Why? We don't question this. As far as a lot of us are concerned, when you make these things an issue, you just a stirring up trouble, right? You're trying to make war with people. These things don't exist, but they do. Now, I've got my poem, and before you start asking questions, which I hope that you will ask, I wrote this poem years back, and it's a dedication to our sisters. It's my humble contributions. Oh yes, sorry, before I go, one thing in particular. I don't know, how many have heard of Lewis Latimer?
I have.
Lovely, good.
The inventor.
Where did he live when he came to England?
I do not know.
He lived in Lewisham. Lewis Latimer, he didn't invent the light bulb, as a lot of people think, but Lewis Latimer invented a carbon filament. And it was that filament that made the light bulb a reality. Because without the filament, the light bulb uses it's just a glass covering. But he made a carbon filament that withstood the heat that a filament would need in order to throw out light. Incandescent, meaning light from heat. And he lived in Lewisham. And it took me years to try to get people to understand this man lived in this country. So pay some respect to him. But thankfully, this year, they've put him on the Black History Month website. Anyway, as I say, better late than never. Now, my poem. And I hope a lot of you ladies forgive me because it's quite short. And I wouldn't big up myself and say, you know, this is something that I think you all should be proud of. It's my humble contribution, and I hope you regard it with the humility and the honesty that is written. It's called Daughter of Africa. And I quote, Daughter of Africa, in your eyes, I see reflections of our kindness and beauty. In your smile, I feel the warmth of our sun-kissed land. In your laughter, I hear the joy of being. In your presence, I know the comfort of belonging. In you, I see, I feel, I hear, I know, I am. That's it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, are there any questions?
Yes, and I see Brian's got your hand up.
Yes, Brother Paul. You were involved in broadcasting many years ago. I'm sure you were on Radio London one of those radio stations?
I still am.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I said I know that voice. I recognize that voice many years ago. Yes, that's good. That's good, Brother Paul. That's good.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, Sis Doctor.
Give thanks. Before I say thank you properly to you, Brother Paul, I just want to say, Bryant, your voice, because you just spoke about Brother Paul's voice, your voice reminds me of Brother Dougie. Your voice and your laugh.
Oh, yes.
I want to say that.
You
Definitely.
mean Douglas Williams?
Yeah.
Yes, fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
No, your laugh.
Yeah, I was close to him. I met him at Head Starts.
No,
Brother
I'm just
Douglas.
saying that you sound like him and you remind me of him. Brother Paul, thank you so much for that.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Let me first of all say thank you for this end of it. A poem for women. No, seriously, I'm serious. I don't play when it comes to these things. A brother who is taking the time to acknowledge the contribution of women. But we not only stand next to you, we feel it when you're hurt.
Thank you.
We grieve when you're gone. When you're incarcerated, so are we. I don't think people really understand the relationship that we have to what is happening to African men, Black men. There's this idea that the Black man is something that's separate from us as a family. So I wanted to acknowledge your poem.
Thank you.
Very powerful, and your works. I am a child, a community child of the late Jessica Huntley, Eric and Jessica Huntley's work.
Okay.
And so the issues that you speak about in terms of education are very real to me.
Yeah.
And there have been, there's been some headway, and it is people like you who go into these spaces, like the mortuary, like the coroner's office, like the governor's, the head teacher's room, that hold us when we fall. The work that you have been doing is really, really appreciated. The seriousness of your presentation is not lost. That was a very, very heavy presentation that you made in terms of the content, but also, your comments about who we give our money to and whose hair we wear and who we value and whether we acknowledge each other on the road and stuff. These are really, really important issues for us as a people. I wanted to ask though, what your thoughts are about this very people, us. If we go to other people's school and we listen to their interpretation of who we are and how we should act and where we should be in the social environment, do you have a different expectation of our current situation? And in addition to giving us, and I have no problem with this, I must say, I have no problem with this, it's just a comment. In addition to giving us licks, can you offer us some strategies about what we can do, given our current state, to change it to how it should be?
Well, I'm not giving out licks. First and foremost, I think we should be teaching people how to live. We have got so much in our arsenal, so much in our education bag that we really truly don't need to go to people's schools. We should be having our own schools. We've got professors, we've got neurosurgeons, we've got everything that you could think of in the terms of educational resources, commercial resources. We just need to start to be able to trust each other, work together. And also, I think that is why the powers that be, so to speak, engineer certain things that keeps us from that level of trust, love, and respect that they know we are so capable of giving.
Social engineering, social engineering.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
they know that we get that stuff together, we will fly. They know that, you know, nothing can keep us, you know, from this branching out. And the thing is, we're not interested in taking over anybody's business. You know, we've got enough to do with ourselves. You know, we need to concentrate on ourselves, really and truly. I don't know if that answers your question. Does it answer your question or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. If I'm permitted, I'll just add one thing. I think
Please.
The self-love and the confidence that we can actually do it is key. Elder Torrington's presentation gave us a good history of how it is we came to be here, and your presentation kind of really locked it down into, you know, how it's playing itself out. And, you know, if we believe we can educate ourselves for the benefit of ourselves.
Yes.
You know, this is in keeping with the philosophy of the Garvey village. It's very in keeping with what is happening now, because we are educating ourselves, but we're still giving our money away, and we are still agents of the state. Many of us are agents of the state, and I would just offer that, you know, maybe we do need licks, but we also need love. We do, because some of us are realizing that we're agents of the state. Some of us won't even have realized. If we were social workers or doctors, we won't, until these kinds of conversations, realize that actually some of the professional work we did led to the separation of our families, led to incarceration, led to, you know, if somebody can be in a coroner's court and support someone, even though someone's child has been lost, you know, as we wake up now, we realize that actually we've been used. That's what you said, and that's what Elder Torrington said. We have been used, and we're being used still.
Yeah, but I mean, getting back to that issue, I mean, in the coroner's court, I mean, I am not a professional lawyer, and the legal firm that were supposed to be helping her actually backed out. They backed out because when they realized that they were dealing with an academy, these guys, this academy had 2 lawyers. They had 2 lawyers. One was theirs and one was the school's. And there was myself, and the maker, right, standing, just taking these people on. And I, even up to now, I just don't know how I actually did it, right? But I did it, you know, and I give thanks to the Most High, and you know, and the spirits of our mothers and fathers that I stood there, and somehow or another.
Brother King, don't imagine you did it by yourself.
No
yes,
way.
That's why we call libation. That's why we call on the ancestors. That's why you didn't do it by yourself. So yeah, and I know you know that.
I couldn't have done. You know, they were around me, this force, you know, and I'm standing there, and I'm talking, and I'm arguing with these guys, and it's like somehow I knew what to argue. I knew the points that I can sort of trick them upon. I knew what to say. I'm not saying I just knew what to say, you know, and you know, the mere fact that I finished that, and the judge, he said to me, he says, you know, I told him straight, I said, listen, I said, Your Honor, I'm not a qualified lawyer, so I possibly might make some mistakes with regards protocol. And he looked at me and he says, I would help you as much as the law allows me to. That was it, you know, and I just took it from there and I flew. But the thing is, when this mother, when she collapsed in court, you know, I think the whole court just froze, you know, and you see a person who is still connected to her dead child, and you know, it was as if he was still there, you know, and it hit me, it changed me. That court case actually changed me. It changed me, you know. The emotions that I experienced in that court, you know, I don't think I've actually experienced anywhere else, you know. And it changed my outlook on how the system can kill us. Literally, literally kill us. Yeah. If we're not careful, if we don't carry ourselves on the money, if we don't protect ourselves, the system will destroy us. They will put us back in chains and back in a plantation, because slavery was not abolished, it was modified. Yeah. So we have to understand that we are walking through enemy territory, literally. As we stand here and we look at issues, we look at things, we are in a hostile environment. There are two ways about it. As I said before, if you walk into a shop and the people look at you as if you're a criminal. You could be anything. You could be a nuclear physicist. There's a young man I know very well, because I actually used to teach him when he was at primary school. He's now working for CERN, CERN. You know, the biggest scientific agency in the world. However, you view CERN, it is still a massive agency. You know,
atom smashers. Atom smashers.
Yes.
Atom smash. Yeah.
Yes, they're trying to find the God principle.
That's right. Yeah, yes.
You know, and he is working for them. I used to teach him maths. Now he can talk to me about the type of maths that I would see as science fiction, because I wouldn't understand what he's talking about. And I feel proud, because I see an end product there. I see this is a young man that I taught certain things, who can now turn and could teach me. You know, there's another young man I work with. He is now a criminologist. You know, and wow, you know, he can teach me.
Paul, I want you to pause for some questions. Yeah,
yes,
because there are several hands up.
Okay.
I want to give you a dilemma and hear what your thoughts are on it. And thank you for what you've done, what you've presented and shown. So firstly, the carnival, the taking is estimated between 60 and 90 million a year.
Yeah, I did say a conservative estimate.
Yeah, 60 to 90 million.
Yeah.
You know, and if we got one of that given to our community, we can do things.
Yeah,
so the dilemma is that, you know, and I've spent kind of 30 years on that plantation. So I know what it's like for people coming in, and the dilemma that you're given is that if you stand on this side, you keep your job. If you stand on that side, you lose your job. All right. And that's what the system offers those that it's paying, you know, and I see it today in 2020 in some of the work that I'm doing.
Keep talking. Yep.
Right. The challenge is, if that person stood on the right side and they lost their job, we don't have an infrastructure that can pick them up and support them, etc., etc. And some people would say, you know, believe that they're holding down this job by whatever means, and that job keeps a roof on their head, feeds their children, and helps them to go forward. All right. Now, if they lost that job, how would they enable, how would they go forward, how would they be able to support? What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. You need a job.
Yes.
No. This is a rhetoric. You need a job, right? Now the thing is, what kind of a job? Any job you choose will have its disadvantages.
Mm.
If I choose to go into the police force, I can say, well, I want to join the police force because I want to make a difference. I want to make a change. I want young men in the community to be able to identify with me. But in that police force, I have to listen to what the superintendent says, what the chief superintendent says, what the sergeant says. Now, if I am a weak person, I can listen to words like, you go out there and you arrest some Black people, you arrest some youths.
Mm-hmm.
And he or she would tell me why I need to arrest these youths. And they would show me all the statistics, all the muggings, everything that the Black youths have done in this community, and how they are a menace, and how they challenge and they make people feel unsafe. And I would leave that particular office, and I would go out there and I would be looking for some Black youths. I'm not saying definitely me or that is what happens, but that is what could happen. So yes, I would do that in order to keep my job, to be able to prove to them that I'm a worthy candidate for this particular job, and also I've got a family to feed. I'm a worthy candidate for promotion. It's a catch-22 situation. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yes, it's got to be done. It's the only way out of that is if we have our own infrastructure. Now, I'm doing a degree on sociology and criminology at the university. And I find doing that, there's a lot of things that I never realized in the community. There's a lot of ways that I'm being asked to think about things in ways that I know for a fact, hang on a minute, this isn't really the way that I would approach this particular situation. But I need to think in terms of how they put the information down in order to get my credits. So I have to be two different people. I have to be the person who follows the thread, and the person who knows that certain elements of that thread doesn't really relate to me at all. So I have to be, and I know the people who have been there know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to be two separate people in order to get through. Now, when you got that bit of paper, is what you do with it. How do you make changes? And the thing is, sometimes you get caught up in a situation whereby, right, I've got the paper, now I need a job. And that brings me back to the fact is we have not built an infrastructure. We cannot take on board the people who go through that situation and come out. In other words, we've got nothing really to offer our graduates. We've got no companies as such. We don't run anything. We don't own anything. We can't look at a young man who spent 3 or 4 years or whatever in a situation who's going to come out with a bit of paper. We can't say, right, I'm going to compete with an existing company for your services. We can't do that. We haven't got the wherewithal to do that. So I think what we need to do right now is start to build and start to make something happening. I'm not saying that everything that we build would be successful, or every venture that we try to go into would result in in a success story, but we got to do something with the
We have to start. We have to start. And we've got a question from Marlene. She's got her hand up. Okay. Marlene. Marlene.
Yeah. Sorry.
Quickly.
Sorry. Yeah. Paul, would you say it's because we were given all those free community building in the 60s and we didn't see the importance of owning our own building?
I'm telling
that
you,
was something that set us back greatly.
Oh man,
because if we had to struggle from then to get our own building, we might have got our act together much earlier. We've started to now, but that's a generation gone that it wasn't done.
Yeah.
And also regarding the carnival, that money that's made, someone at some point should have made sure somehow we got some of it, because I'm disgusted to think that all the costume, they've got to take their own money out of their own pocket to entertain. And, you know, we have not been proactive. So that's 2 points I'd like to make for you to comment on.
All right, you have to be very quick because we've got Brian needs to ask a question, and also Emma quickly before we move on.
The first question relating to the 60s and the property and the buildings, you know, I'm as guilty as the next person, because we did not know what was around the corner.
That's the problem.
Not to know. And again, we were coming from an area whereby trust was everything, as far as we were concerned. You know, in the 60s, that, you know, I was new to this shores. I remember back home, a handshake meant a handshake. You know what I mean? You took a man's hand and that was it. You made a promise. So we were naive to a very large extent as regards that. About the carnival, greed. The council we're talking about are greedy. They don't do it about just plain, simple, down to earth, greedy. You know, there is nowhere they're going to give us anything that we didn't really fight for and bite for and scratch at people for. There's nowhere they're going to say, well, here you are, that's yours. No, there are greedy people. Don't forget, they're the same people who saw Grenfell burnt to the ground. These are the same people we're talking about. So there's nowhere that they are going to give us anything. So
okay, Bryant.
Paul, have you written a book yet, or planning to write a book in the future?
Well, I plan to write a book of my poems.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, and we have our final question from Emma. Sister Emma.
Hello.
You're on mute, Emma.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Question. I don't have a question, but I did write down some points. We need to stop this they, but who's they, and just focus on us and work from inside out. If anybody wants to elaborate, then they can call me separately. We need to task each other with jobs to do. This country has a system. There's legislation that quotes chapter and verse as to what you can get and what you can't get, and how to go about doing it. We need to have those in the right places and then broadcast so that we all know about it, and then we head to the relevant departments to get our fair share.
It doesn't always work.
I know, but the thing is, when it didn't work when we were going in the 70s, when we were going to schools on our own. As soon as Elbow, we came together and two of us would stand by the parent, things started to work. And when we started putting in reports into the Rampton Committee, which became the Swan Report, they began to listen to what we were saying about Section 11 money to be used for Saturday schools and to set up our own schools. It began to work when we listened to people like Bernie Grant And we bought our building. Elbow bought its building. We were telling all the other groups around London that time to do the same. Anyway, that's a long story. And the, oh Lord, my eyes. With, sorry,
hang on a minute.
Yeah?
You just went into the light. We know each other. Oh my God. It's you. It is you. It is you.
It's me.
It is you. Hi, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good.
We need to encourage, our people who are in the professions, whether it's social workers, teachers, doctors, whatever, to actually work with a mentality that helps us. And that is to bring them home and do the loving and the healing so that when they go out there, they're not afraid.
All right. Yeah.
That's the only short way I can put it.
Okay. Whatever, I can just quickly respond to them. I think one of the things that we need to be very, very careful of and be very observant of, there's 3 letters that is used in the educational system. ESN, SEN, blah, blah, blah. ESN stands for educationally subnormal, and SEN,
special education needs.
Special education needs. They're the same letters. They're the same letters. They mean the same thing.
Yes.
They just I mean, it's someone somewhere is having a laugh, right? They've just shifted the letters around, but they mean the same thing. As long as they push a whole load of children of African ancestry in a pool, they can do whatever they want with that pool. It's up to us to dip our hands in and pull those children out, and that is what we need to do. We need to sometimes forget all about the structures and stuff and look at the very, very basics. I mean, if you're going to build a road from point
Paul,
yeah,
I think it's time now. Yeah, please.
Okay, brother. Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Auntie Jean.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul Phoenix, for your presentation. And what's there.
Let me quickly start. If you need my email address or phone number, Auntie Jean's got it.
Thanks.
And that goes to anyone because we're being pressurized to
Put it in the chat. Could you not put it in the chat, please, Paul? Put it in the chat for others. Others might want to get in touch with you.
Where's the chat?
At the side. Get Stacey to help you.
Carry on, Auntie Jean.
Okay. All right then. Give thanks again, and we're moving swiftly on to our next presentation. Dr. Aubrey Jacob Oliver, and Dr. Oliver. Jacob is from the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo convert. And he's a Jamaican, he's a functional holistic medicine physician, trained through Ashford University and in complementary and alternative medicines. So Dr. Aubrey Jacob Oliver, the screen is now yours and welcome. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm not bad. And just rushing back from seeing a couple of patients in the evening here, and I was gonna talk about a lot of fun history, but it's the end. We're winding down Black History Month, but I think we're gonna continue this through the rest of the year and the next year, and until we get where we're supposed to be. Just listening earlier about people leaving colleges and not having the infrastructure to get certain jobs and stuff. But I remember when I first got back to Jamaica and I was lecturing at one of the colleges there, and I implemented a program. I didn't basically put it together, but there was a group of doctors, PhDs that helped put it together. And I was the one to, I guess, orchestrate it. And it was a more entrepreneurial program. It was to train the artists within our students, talented ones, where they can train and become their own, entrepreneurs. I mean, because when you look in the world, these jobs that you claim that you're working, you're getting ready to do, they're mainly corporations that somebody created something and they leave a gap for marketing or for public relations, for manufacturing, cultivation, development. And so, yeah, our college grads, they get out and they go and fill these spaces in the tech world. But all of us have the mind to create our own destiny. I mean, we cannot blame anyone anymore. I mean, the difference between us and them in a lot of cases is just the way we think. It's the way we, see things. I mean, if we see things from a defeatist or negative perspective, yes, we will be there. If we keep, lodging back in the past, then we're putting ourselves there, and there's no way we can progress. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on here a few things, But so let's go with the fun stuff. So tonight, Auntie Jane, we're focusing on what? Is the more history, or we're focusing on implementing or creating right now? Auntie Jane.
Sorry, I was muted. I was muted.
Okay.
What you actually put down was our long history to our present state. So I don't know if you still want to go on that theme.
I'm gonna mix it. Okay, I'll mix in with the health and stuff, since that's my expertise also. But the other day I was listening to a video why I talk about the long history in the first place. And this Jamaican guy is a social scientist, and I heard someone saying that they're working on a social science degree. When I was in college, my favorite subjects were social science. My most, I would say, the one that I got into really good was psychology, where I had like a 99.9. It's funny because when you're in school, whatever you dig, whatever you're getting into, whatever you like, you tend to get better grades in those. But I got good grades in all the social sciences, especially sociology, anthropology, but I love psychology. But the thing about anthropology, the things that they teach us over the years is amazing, because it's amazing how their history, and I guess that's why they call it history, because it's his story. It's not really ours.
That's true.
I mean, so it's his story. I always tell, let me start off with a little joke, because that's his story, which is history. And when I remember that, I remember this comedian, I think Paul Mooney. I don't know if any of you guys know that American comedian. And he told a joke. I was listening to him. I was like young. This got to be in the 80s when I heard him giving this joke. And he's like, when the Europeans came to Africa, and they saw the African men, literally making their own village, controlling their own villages with their women. Some of them had many wives, many kids. And he saw, the European man saw this, and he was like, he looks at them and he's like, this one is bigger than me. From now on, this is called bigamy. We're going to put a law against this called bigamy, because he thought about it. I can't handle this. So what should I name it? What negative connotation should I put with this? And of course, I came up with bigamy. So when he told that joke, I was laughing, because it's a similar with the whole history of what they did to us. They tell their story, in their way, in a whitewashed way, and just constantly lie to us about who we are. And in this modern time, they make it seem like we just go back to our history, go back to slavery. I mean, sometimes even when they talk about us being minority, it's just a big joke. Like in the States, they're like, oh, the minorities and this. Why do they use these words to keep putting us back? We could never be minorities. We are, when you think about all the folks with our colors and our skin tone and heritage, how could we be the minority? But yes, they use these terms. They keep us. The amazing thing that I always also look at from a health perspective, they try their best to keep us at the minorities. They put these laws in place that, no intermarriage over the years. They basically keep us, where the food and the other things that they, create for bad health in our community, the alcohol, I always wonder why there's so many alcohol companies, or I would say delis, that sell so much different alcohol too. And they never ask you, in the Black community, they never ask you for age paper. They just sell you liquor and beer at any age that you want. And I always wonder, in these same communities, you have the many liquor stores, the many churches, of course, and then you have the dialysis centers, and they, through stress and of course, bad living, drinking, and so forth, we end up in these situations where we're sickly and early. The male are in dialysis by the time they're 40s. They might have 1 or 2 kids, and they kept us. From the time I've been to the States, the Americans, the Black Americans are 10% of the population. We're 30 million people. 30 million people. And that was in the 80s. And I think now we're still 30 million people. And I always wonder, how do they keep us at that number, like around that number? How come we don't even grow? How come? And, when you look at what's going on over those years, those 30, 40 years, you can understand, the way they genetically orchestrate our food science, our food for our community, from the kind of restaurants that are in there to the as I said, the liquor stores, all this stuff is just set up to keep us at that number. Now they're going further with these viruses and bacteria, which we'll talk about later on. But how can we say we're a minority? And yes, they keep us in that cocoon as a minority in America, and they let us think that our history just go back to slavery and maybe the civil rights movements right after that and so forth. And I guess similar things here in the UK with our history, Windrush and other things, West Indian coming over, different things that they want us to just think that's our history. But our history is greater than that. Our history is like, so the other day I was listening to this social scientist. I think he's Jamaican, but he went away and he trained, and I think he got his PhD and all that stuff. And he came back. And he was telling the story. I was watching the video, and he's telling the story of our true history. And the video, it was up for a while, and then, I don't know, I think it's disappeared. I even lost it off of my thing. But it's a good thing I watched it to the point where, I kind of get to understand what really went down. So what happened was, okay, as you know about the Moors, which are just sub-Saharan Africans who basically left from Africa and went to Europe. They were tradesmen. They were so rich that they, bring gold and materials, and, Africa was just in abundance of stuff. And we were the merchants of the world. It wasn't the French. The French got this stuff from us. The fashion designers and the great artists, they came from Africa first. They were traveling the world, peddling their merchandise throughout history. This is what we're known for. We were the ones that bring life to communities. And now they try to whitewash and spin that around and make it seem like, okay, yeah, we need to now go and find their work and work in their company and say we're in advertisement and we're in marketing and we're in this and that. No, we can easily go back to that. That's why we're made in the image of the creator. The creator image wasn't because of, it's not a look, it's not a black or white, it's not an image of animal or body or man or whatever. It's an image of creation. We are made to be creative. What he has done, we can do greater as individuals. Everything that we see in this white man world, everything that we see in our African world, everything that we see, it starts in the mind. It starts in somebody's mind. So we have no excuse. We can stop using slavery as an excuse, or the fact that we didn't get that jump start because they took everything from us. We still have our mind. That is our final frontier. That's what we need to use against that. That's why Bob Marley says very clearly, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. We have to do that. They can't do it for us. They don't owe us anything. I don't really want anything. They say yes. I mean, the sad thing is, they do owe us a lot of money. We know that. We build their cities, we build their buildings, we build their society. Going back to the Moors, before I get to where we build and where we owed money. The Moors, when they came to Europe, did you realize that I think it was 80% of Europeans, or 85%, it was a very large number of Europeans, were uneducated. They could not read or write. This was in about, 1400? No, actually before that, about 1200 or so BC, when Moors went to Europe in the Dark Ages and bring light to that place, bring them out of these, where they had some of the worst sicknesses because of germs and bacteria and stuff like that. They were dying from plagues, they were so bad, they called them the Black Plagues. And it was the Africans, their medicine, their thing that came and changed the atmosphere, to change the health issues that was going on in Europe. And nobody talks about it because all of this was whitewashed. Right now in Spain, the Moors were there for 700 years, longer than even how, the 400 years that just passed, that they had us in slavery, and still the mental slavery up until 2012, I think it was, or recently, that we're now officially 400 years. The Moors were there for 700 years. They brought education, they brought everything. Everything was black. Did you realize the deity that they used to have in these churches in Spain? And you still can go in Spain and still see black statues in these churches. You see a black Madonna, you see a black Jesus as a child. So these things were not just yesterday, these are hundreds of years ago. But they make it seem like our history just starts at slavery for us. And it's a big lie. Now, this sociologist from Jamaica, he looked at that whole thing. He talked about, and then once we educated these people and get them to the point, it's almost like the expression, sorry for Magadog, turn around, bite you. Anybody who speaks Jamaican or Patois understand what I just said, right? But that's exactly what happened in Europe. We went there, we sorry for the people, we bring our wealth, we built a lot of the buildings in Spain and Italy, Sicily, and those areas are built by the Moors. The Moors were the royalties. They were the Israelites, because I hate the word Jew, because that's something that they pan out and try to take our birthright. But we were the original Israelites who came to these places. And all the stuff that you see now today, 1,000 years ago, we were doing all that stuff. I mean, we were basically the entertainers. We were we had the corporations, we had the companies. These men were going through the desert, bringing stuff from sub-Sahara Africa all the way to Europe to sell and trade. And we were so kind. We gave them the knowledge. You can even go back to even Egypt. We brought the knowledge to them to the Greeks. And they come and make it seem like, oh, they're the first one to come with this stuff. They went to Egypt and learned this. There were scholars in Egypt. The Greeks, the Italians, all the Europeans used to be scholars. They used to take their boats and go down there and study. So we have a very rich, powerful history, and we can go back to that just by changing our mindset. The problem in our society today is the mindset that we have. Too many of us are bowed down by what we can get from these people, or what we should be getting from these people, or what we should be getting from their education and so forth. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But when you think about what this guy was saying, so the Moors were very powerful. We educated their priests and their popes and all this stuff. And these guys got wing and said, wait, we can be what these Africans are. I don't know if you saw a video the other day that was passing around where you see the Pope, this most recent Pope, went down to the country, one of those countries where the Moors are from. I don't know if it's South Sudan or one of those, but it's this black country. But the Moors, a group of Moors were there, and he was bowing to all of them, just like, you can see that he's frail. He's an older guy, he's the Pope, but he just keeps bowing, and he goes down on his knees, and you could hear the breathing. And this video was passing around, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? And then I realized he is a student of history. He knows that what the Catholic Church have, what the Vatican and everything that they have there was stolen from those Africans. Everything. The building, the way the building is made, everything, the Moors made all of that in Italy. And he knows that. And that's why he was down there bowing down in front of all of them, apologizing. And if the Europeans can get that, just see what he was doing and just even understand the depth of that. Because we gave them everything. We gave them our soul. Everything you see that looks good in Europe came from Africa. Everything. The Queen is sitting on so much artifacts from Africa that is so precious. And just the other day, I was reading where they want to send certain things back to Africa after they use them to their fullest, ability. They want to send certain arts back and this and that, and it's still hesitating. It's ours. It's like if we had come to Europe and they had all these riches and we steal it, then they would have probably, nuked us a long time ago. Look what they did to Haiti. All Haiti did in 1804 was fight for their freedom. That's all they did. They just wanted to be free, a free country. And they're still paying the French, the American policing that to today, to this day. That's why they're the poorest country in the world, because every money they make have to go to these people. So what's really going on? We as a people can get back to that. Now, as the sociologist explains, and my mind started getting clearer, and I'm starting getting freer, and I start understanding how great and how powerful we are. Because I knew about the Moor story. I knew that we came and I knew we educated the Europeans. They were like, illiterate, most of them. But those same people that we educated and show how to make weapons and boats, because the Africans were traveling to North America, to Russia, and selling their stuff and bringing life to these countries. Long time before even the Moors went to Europe. If you look at the Almec heads, where the word Mexico comes from, and you look at these heads of people that looks just like me and you, our head with our nice, big, thick nose and our big lips. When you look at these people, those things were made 20,000, 30,000 years ago. The stones that they used to make those statues, they're so strong to last all these years. And those were the people that were in the Americas, the Central America, the Caribbean, and so forth. When they whitewash the story and talk about Arawaks, we had these little frail little Arawaks on these little boats going through the Caribbean, and some were eating by the Caribs and all this. They always try to make us out to be cannibals in their whitewash mind, because they are the cannibals. They used to talk about the Caribs used to come and capture Arawaks and take them back. I remember these stories when I was a child in primary school, learning about our history. And I was to believe that my ancestors were coming up on the shores of Barbados and Jamaica and eating people. But that's what they taught us. And now you learn the true story that it was Black people running these areas. The Olmec Head, when you go into Central America and South America, there's cities covered that were even much bigger than European cities, covered on the bushes, just because they don't want us to know our history. The Arawaks, the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, they were Black people, but they tried to whitewash them when they went down there by killing off as many of them as possible. But let's go to the point why they kill us off, because that's the interesting thing. So when these religious people realize and learn from the Africans, when they learn from the Africans that they can do, they can be creative like the creator. They can actually, their mind can do all these wonderful things. They can travel across oceans and survive and, bring merchandise all over the world. Once the Europeans, they found out about it and said they can do it. And now their minds are expanding. Guess what they did? They turned against the Moors. They had a war. That's what they call the crusade and all that stuff, where they were killing off. They claimed they were killing people who were heralds or whatever they call them, with the word they use, who weren't getting with the program of the Great Crusade war that they had, getting with the program of Christianity, their so-called Christianity. It was a lie. The war was against all Black people at the time. It wasn't about just going down and killing people because they weren't, obeying Christianity or the way they wanted it to be. The war was against getting rid of all these Black people, all the history that they created in Europe, totally wipe out the history. In Spain right now, there's nothing even in their history books. 700 years that the Moors were controlling that place. They can't even, and yet you look at the people. If you look at the Spaniards and the Sicilians and those people that the Moors had captured, and you look at the people that go north, the blonde, you can see that they were mixed. Something came and mixed with them because their hair is thick and dark and curly, and some of them have really beautiful olive skin because they were mixed in with the Moors. But yet they tried to wipe out this history completely. Why? Because the nature of their evil mind, not just can't accept that these people come from the South in Africa and came and educate them and build them back up and make them a people to reckon with. They went and they started a war against the same people that helped them. And this is where the history gets even more interesting. Christopher Columbus was the ISIS of his day. Christopher Columbus was what you call, because Christopher Columbus, the lies that they told, the whitewashing of this story, where Christopher Columbus went and discovered a place that was full of life, riches. These Mayans and Incas and these people were Black people with their temples worshiping there. And when Christopher went down there, Christopher didn't go down there to discover anything. Christopher did not lost going to India, trying to find India. That's not what happened. Those were all lies, whitewashed lies by the Europeans. Christopher Columbus was a Renaissance soldier. He was a soldier. And his job was to go and find the rest of the Africans, the rest of the Moors, wherever they are. Go and find them. And as soon as he found them, he'd send word back. He got back to Europe, to Queen Isabella and all the popes and whoever was running things at the time. And they send out the Spanish Armada, which was maybe 3, 4, they say it's 3 ships, Nina, this and that, but it's all lies. It's their old fleet. And when they got to the Caribbean, when they got to Central America, when they got down there, they wipe out as many Africans as they could find. The whole war was against, at the time they called us the Ethiopians. The war was against the Ethiopians, like Great Crusade War. It was against the Africans because Africa was known as Ethiopia at the time. So we have to understand our history. And once we understand our history, that's how we can become great again. That's how we can get back to that status that we were and stop off to be depending on them with our school. We have to, as I said in one of the last Zoom conference that we had, we have to start creating our own schools again. We have to start creating our own hospitals. We have to create the Africans are doing it. There's people in Africa doing it, but yet they still have to depend on European dollars. As I said, what happened in Haiti, they keep Haiti poor because Haiti had to pay back all the money they made back to Spain, with, as I said, with the US police in it, so that every dollar they make, I think like 70% had to go back to Spain for many, many years, billions of dollars. Now, how could they get away with that in this modern time when they owe us so much money for what they were doing with us before the Haitians even uprise? Think about after Haiti uprised, they still kept the rest of the Jamaicans, even though it was Jamaicans who went over Haiti and caused the uprising. But the Jamaicans, they were there struggling in another 30, 40 years before they did their uprising. I mean, they were doing uprising here and there because you had people in Jamaica that were not taking it and they run to the mountains. And that's another story, because we talk about the Maroons. And I have some, the Maroons are dear to my heart. My grandmother is a Maroon from Scotsall, St. Mary area. And I know some great people who are Maroons. But the other lie is that they said the Maroon fought the British and they were such good fighters that they end up, have to sign a treaty. That was a lie. There was no major war. I mean, there was certain Maroon pockets that was fighting the British. Yes, like Taki and those guys, which they don't really talk about that much. But those guys were fighting the British and they decided to get burned rather than surrender to the British. And that's what happened to them. But the majority of Maroons, if you know anything about the history of Maroon, the Maroons were actually the first militia that made a deal that the British made a deal with for sending back, for hunting and finding runaway slaves, just like in the US. The first police force in the US was to find runaway slaves. It wasn't to protect any community. That's why we still have the police mentality in America. Find it easy as a black man stand up or say anything too much, they want to shoot them down right in the street, unharmed, because that's where the mentality comes from. That's another show that we'll do when we get into why they're killing us like that. But at the same time, we know why they're killing us.
Dr. Aubrey, you're going to have to do part 2, you know that. So we're going to have to stop for question time.
Yes.
If anybody got any questions.
So the whole thing with Christopher Columbus was about him as a soldier that was sent out to find out where continue the annihilation and the wiping out of the people because they were so jealous of us. So, they just couldn't believe that we controlled them for so long. But yet, we did not do what they did to us in the 400. They basically, just took away our soul. They just killed us in those 400. What we did in Europe, we made them great so that they can come back and kill us. Yeah, so anyway, yeah. That's the history till now. So we can change that now, and with the same mindset that we had all those years back then when we were controlling the trade and the commerce of the world. Africa used to control everything. It wasn't the Jews. The Jews just learned that from us. That's why they still depend on us to buy their stuff today. The Jews know that the black people know how to make money. We spend billions and billions of dollars. The difference is why we're poorer than they are. We're never poor. We're not even poor. But the difference why we have less cash flow than they are is because our cash don't stay in our community. It goes to their community.
Yeah.
Before the cash leaves the Jewish community.
Dr. Aubrey, Dr. Aubrey, we need to pause you. We've got very little time left.
Okay, great.
You need to pause you so you can get a couple of questions.
No problem.
Okay. And
Yes.
please, can it be questions? We don't want any speeches. There isn't time. Just a question to Dr. Aubrey, please.
Okay. Paul, you was first, and then Sasha, then Marlene.
Right, Dr. Aubrey, thank you very, very much for an interesting presentation. My main question is about the Maroons in Jamaica. What is the legal status at the moment of the area that they occupy? Are they autonomous as regards what? I mean, what can they do?
Repeat that. I didn't get that because I don't know why
the main question is about the Maroons in Jamaica. What exactly is their legal status regarding the area that they occupy?
Yeah, there's a treaty that they have from the Queen. I guess the Queen, yes, she's in control. And they're in certain areas like most of Portland belong to the Maroons, but over the years, the government and some of these crooked politicians have slowly taken back some of the prime real estate and sell them to Europeans and other people for the highest bidder. But most of Portland was designated to the Maroons. Most of St. Elizabeth, parts of St. Mary were designated to the Maroons. Basically, they gave the Maroon areas that if the slaves have to escape to those areas for refuge, they would send them back. But a lot of them would escape and still join up with the Maroons also. There were good Maroons and bad Maroons.
Okay, Sasha, your question? Welcome. You're muted. Unmute yourself, please.
I just wanted to ask, can you hear me now, Auntie Jane?
Yes, can hear you.
I just wanted to ask, what do you see as a modern way forward to challenging and holding a resistance?
Well, as I said, we have to go back to our creativity, which is in our thoughts. I mean, our thoughts is what's going to give us what we want. But we're so busy thinking about the things that they have done to us. We're so busy thinking about what they have and what we don't have. We're so busy looking at the bleakness around us that we're not channeling our thoughts to do the creative stuff that we used to do. And they purposely are doing this to us, because if we can't get to think to be creative, we're not going to be able to be creative. We're too bogged down with the things that are in our immediate conscious, our immediate vision. We're not being able to vision beyond that. The greatness that we want to have, the big buildings that we want to create, the yachts we want to build, again, like what we used to have back then. So yes, we need to now, it's the hardest work, because it's hard because when you're thinking about all what's going on, all the negative things that's going on around us, it's hard to be thinking about creating wealth and happiness and advancing, but people are doing it. People are getting there. Your thought is what has to make you move forward.
Thank you. Marlene?
Hi, Aubrey, Dr. Aubrey, Marlene. Where did you learn your history, and is that what you think made you become progressive as you've become, and get very really far in life and not being held back? And do you think we'll get there, and will it take us forever to get there, or are we getting close?
I mean, the history is in these, as I said, these Almec head, the statues and those things. When you look at them, how are you going to say that we had these frail little Arawak people with these long, scrawny hairs, almost white, copper color, the Indians that they show us in our history, but yet when you look at the Almec heads, they're straight up Africans. So whoever it was in control at the time are the ones who leave their history for us to see. And they do it so well that some of those heads are over 20,000 years. So that means they were so advanced in their creativity, in their technology, to make something that's so clear. So that if it was these Arawak people that was going around in canoes and stuff that created that kind of history or created those kind of statues, then it wouldn't have survived as long as it did. Some of, as I said, some of those structures that they built are 20, 30,000 years old. Some of those cities that are buried in Central America, but they want to bury them. They want to have the bush over them because they weren't Europeans made, they were African made.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go back to those. You have to go back, you do your research, and there's people out there that are intelligent enough and have the time to go and do this research and go to these areas. White folks have been doing it, but when they find it, they cover them back up. They don't want them to. They don't want anyone to know. Because when you go to the pyramids in Egypt, you see everything on the wall about our history. You see dark-skinned people. They were never white people, so you know they were Africans that were painted and engraved in these cemetery, because that's what a lot of the pyramids were. They tell the stories. So when you go to the central part of America, when you go to South America and you see these great cities, and then you start digging as an archaeologist, and you start looking and then you say, wait, these are not Europeans, these are not the little frail Indian, these are actually African, strong, big black men. Oh, cover this back up. We can't tell them the truth.
Mm-hmm. So
it's there.
So you didn't actually study it, you went on doing certain exploration on finding.
Exactly. Because you can compare what they teach you. As I said, I specialize in sociology, anthropology, psychology. I was a social science student before I decided to go into healing, before I get my healing heart degree. So it's an art. Healing is an art which came from Africa. You know, that's why I practice the way I practice. I practice an art form that is go way back to the Egyptians. So
thank you.
Knowledge is power.
Thank you, Dr. Aubrey. Auntie Jean, can we close now because we got some speeches? As Auntie Jean said, please come back again. I think you got about 3 hours of stories to.
Yes, we have a part two. We have a part two.
We have a part two.
Not just in that short time. Please come back again. Thank you.
And time flies so fast when you're telling the truth. My goodness.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much. Big thank you to Arthur Torrington for your presentation on War, the Empire, and the Windrush. Also, thank you to Paul Phoenix for the state of us in the 21st century, and also thank you again to Dr. Jakob.
This was a Zoom I was on.
Okay, completely. So thank you very much. Also, we've got some Zoom events coming up over the weekend. So we start with tomorrow, which is under the mango tree. So Sis Doctor, or is it Royston going to be?
Not tomorrow, it's not tomorrow, it's not tomorrow, it's next week.
That's me again, isn't it? Oh, gosh. It's me again. All right, then no, you haven't got the under the mango tree tomorrow. It's next week. No, it's week after next.
No, it's next week.
Is it next week? Don't you do the first and the third week, or is it just the third?
So tomorrow's the last Saturday.
Oh yes,
we do the first and the third.
Yeah, but it's a first for me. Okay.
Yeah, get on the program, Auntie G.
I got it wrong.
Thank you. That was the precursor to the mango tree.
Okay.
More will be revealed next week. Thank you.
All right. That's messed me up big time. But anyway, so Sunday, there's 2 events on Sunday. The first event is at 12 o'clock, between 12 and 2. And it is Are Your Loved Ones Crossed Over? And it's an event that is going to be headed by Sister Kasheni, and it's our ancestors, our loved ones who have passed, and possession by foreign entities. So basically your loved ones who have passed, and they can find themselves into another being. So basically, if you want to hear more about that, Kasheni can explain it more than I can, better than I can. So join us on Sunday between 12 o'clock and 2. for that. There is a registration, so I'll put that details in. I've put my telephone number in so you can get in contact with me, and I'll give you the details if you don't have it already. And also on Sunday between 7 o'clock and 10, we have the African Culture Market, where we have our elder Vasco Stevenson talking about our current affairs. And also Winston True is going to be telling us about the Paul Bogle story. And also Brother Jamelia and is from Africa, formulating a route to repatriation. So that is on Sunday. So we've got 2 events on Sunday, and Under the Mango Tree is not yet, it's next week. So I look forward to seeing you there. And we have an announcement from our sister Sasha. Sister Sasha, are you muted? Can you unmute yourself, Sister Sasha?
I'm not sure what's happened.
She disappeared.
It looks as though she's dropped off.
Okay. Sister Sasha was going to be talking about something that she put in forward, a Zoom event that we was going to actually be putting forward. She will be coming, joining us on the screens at the African Culture Market on Sunday. So if she's not be able to make it back before we close up this evening, you'll see her on Sunday. So thank you again for everybody, all the presenters, and thank you for everybody for joining us this evening. And yeah, so, a big thank you.
So can I say, I think her phone is died, her battery's died.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So so she was going to introduce herself to come in and speak next week, and you know, wanted to rally and invite you to bring some younger people, whoever you have as younger people, to get involved, because Sasha represents our youth and our future, and you know, not making any judgments, but we are a very mature group on this Garvey village at the moment, and we want to get more young people involved. So if you have young people around you, we want to invite you to bring them along next week so that they can hear what Sasha has to say. The children are our future.
Is Shares in the Shares? Do you want to make an announcement quickly? Okay, if she's not there.
Are you there? Yeah, I can see her, but yeah, again, I know she was going in between Zooms. So
yeah, on her behalf then, in terms of the Garvey Village and fundraising, what she has been doing is putting in to the chat the Garvey Village account details, because we do need support for funding support to actually, you know, grow this project. So if anyone on the Zoom is able to make a contribution, the details are in the chat. You may wish to scroll down because I don't have it in my hand at the moment. Jean, do you want to put it in?
Well, it's there. It's the last thing that's been put in. She had to actually put that in. So it's the last thing that's actually there in the chat.
Right.
Okay. Auntie Jean, can you put your phone number? I've got a friend and she keeps asking me she can get to you direct. So others can get to you direct.
I have put it in the chat. So what I'll do is I'll redo it and put it back. All right.
Yeah, so that people can go to you direct instead of me.
Okay. Okay. Oops. All right. So
and can I mention something, Auntie Jane?
Yes, you may.
Can I mention that for those who have the time on Sunday at 7 o'clock, there is an event to do with Ignatius Sancho. Now, Ignatius Sancho lived in the 18th century. He was born on a slave ship. His father committed suicide because he didn't want to be a slave. He came to Blackheath as a boy of 2. But he eventually became an African man of letters. He owned a shop, which is now where the Foreign Office is, parallel to Downing Street. So this is Ignatius Sancho, Charles Ignatius Sancho, who lived most of his life, well, really, in a sense, in Lewisham.
Wow.
in the 18th century.
So what time is the
I'm going to
event?
send you some stuff,
What
Jane,
time?
you can send around.
Okay,
Elder
thank you.
Arthur, what time is the event?
7
It's
o'clock.
7 o'clock to 9.
On
7
what
o'clock
day?
on Sunday to 9 o'clock.
Sunday.
Thank you.
Sunday,
All right.
yeah. I'll send you the stuff, Auntie Jane.
All right,
Right.
thank you.
Sorry,
Thank you
Auntie
very
Jean,
much.
sorry, Auntie Jean, it's Cheryl. Did you do the announcement? Is the announcement being done?
Patricia did, but you again, it's not going to hurt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've been posting in the chat in regards to the Garvey village that we've got a fantastic vision that we're bringing forward. Okay, as you know, we want it to be a community centre for all of us, for our people. And when I say our people, I mean people of African heritage. So, and we want it for the youngers, and we want it for the elders as well, and the in-betweeners. So, and there's many things that we want to do within that, but we won't know what we need to do unless you complete the, I've put a survey in there as well. And also for us to take it forward, we will need to have the monies to take it forward. Otherwise we won't be able to have this vision, something for ourselves. So if you could just donate, you can even set up a standing order. Just remember, we're under kind of like tier 2 now. Okay, so that's where we used to be buying your coffees and going to Costa and to Starbucks. You can use that money to put forward into the donations. That would be so helpful, because this is not for us. This is a not-for-profit. Okay, this is for everyone. All right. So yeah. So there's my announcement, and I hope that's okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. On that note, I say good night to everybody. Thank you all for joining us. Big thank you to all our presentations.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
For Arthur Torrington, Dr. Aubrey, and also Paul Phoenix. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
I'll see you, Arthur. I'll speak to you soon.
We'll talk, Sharon. All right.
All right.
All right.
See you. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, y'all.
Good night.
See ya. Good night.